What if the thing that you're running from isn't failure, but it's stillness? It's quiet. What if the real reason that you keep pushing and striving, optimizing your day, achieving things, ticking off boxes, is not because you're super duper ambitious, but because slowing down actually feels really unsafe? Might even feel guilty. And the thing is, most high performers don't fear hard work. A lot of them love hard work. They're really afraid of what happens when the noise, when the busyness stops. Because in the quiet, in the stillness, there's no distraction. There's no performance. There's no achievement to hide behind. There's just you. There's your body, your thoughts, your unresolved emotions. And for so many people, that feels way more threatening than burning out. And so in this episode, I really want to explore why slowing down can feel so incredibly terrifying for driven, capable people, and why your nervous system might actually be addicted to stress. And also why the calm that you're chasing isn't found by doing more and striving more, but by learning how to feel safe enough to do less. Because your true power will not come from hustling and grinding harder. It will come from being regulated and safe and peaceful enough to choose and make decisions wisely. And I'm not exempt from this by any means. In fact, 2024, very recently, was a year where I thought I had to hold everything together. I was experiencing a lot of pressure in my business and different team members coming and going, tensions in my relationship, which eventually culminated in a breakup, and a family member receiving a cancer diagnosis. So it was like the universe just stacking seemingly catastrophic event after catastrophic event. I say seemingly because, at the time it felt like my entire world was crumbling down. I just felt completely unresourced, and all of this emotional weight was piled on top of more emotional weight. I mean, I can look back now with a sense of gratitude for how things have unfolded, but at the time, I mean, I was really, really just like hopeless, dysregulated, feeling super, super lonely. Old identities, relationships started disappearing, and my world felt like it was completely collapsing. And yet I still continued to show up in my business. I still continued to produce, to perform. And, maybe on the outside, if someone was looking in, it looked like I was really functional, but internally I was so fragmented. I mean, all of those stable structures in my life, a romantic relationship, family integrity and well-being and structure and business just started disintegrating. And what I was telling myself at the time is, you know what? I'll rest later. I just need to get through this next thing. So everything that I share with you, it's also, a bit of medicine for the younger version of me as well. Because the truth was, I was really trying to outwork the uncertainty that I was facing and also outrun grief or outrun anticipatory grief because of the challenges that would ensue and the loss that I would experience following on from that. And so what did I do? I mean, I leaned harder into strategy, into output, into structure, into growth. I kept on producing more content, more planning, more effort, more workshops, more webinars, more coaching calls. And I wasn't doing it because I was feeling inspired. I was doing it because slowing down felt so unsafe for me. It was the only sense of refuge that I could find through distraction. I was clearly using productivity and busyness as a way to completely self-soothe because deep down I was just feeling so terrified. So terrified. And so achievement became a way to feel safe, as it may be for you as well. And my emotional regulation came through success, but it wasn't true emotional regulation. It was actually dysregulation. I was still chasing more output, and yet still continuing to feel really tight and tense in my body and run down and just on the brink of collapse. And unfortunately, this is the core pattern that a lot of high performers don't see. And so what happened? Well, my motivation dipped. I was just trying to run around with so many monkeys on my back, and I was slowing myself down so much. My creativity dried up. I felt like I was going crazy because what used to be a really, really passionate, intense soul fire that really lit a spark in my belly to go out and to support people and to create, cool, fun, engaging, entertaining, educational content disappeared. I was like, what am I doing? What's my purpose? Beneath all of that was a very fried nervous system, And I was still doing the work, I was, meditating here and there. I was pausing. I was, trying to get my sleep right because sleep was really, really tough around that period of time. So many sleepless nights. I mean, my God, I think I went for like 6 to 8 weeks of like sleeping on average 3 hours a night. It was just absolutely awful. And so I was doing all of these like little practices and techniques to try and get by, but I wasn't actually being with myself. I was doing everything quote unquote right, but it was actually from the wrong place. And no amount of success or achievement or wins could regulate what I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And I guess the turning point for me was realizing that you can't outthink or outwork what your body is holding. You can't do it. I've tried. Sorry to tell you, it can't be done. And so I made the very difficult but very important decision to completely pause rather than push. I took some time off, about 3 to 6 months, and really kept, I think, 1 or 2 clients at the time to keep things ticking along. But most of it was just devoted to me. I really dove deep into yoga and breath work and shadow work to start connecting to my body and just letting go of this identity of trying to produce more and perform more and just, it's just so exhausting. Aren't you exhausted of doing that? Oh my God. And at the time, it felt really scary, right? Because it felt like I was quitting. It felt like I wasn't doing the things that I saw a lot of other people online doing and around me doing. And then it kind of changed and transformed into a sense of peace and a sense of self-love. I wasn't quitting at all. I was just listening to my body. I started letting myself feel comfortable enough and safe enough to feel what I had been avoiding. And I mean, just so many tears, because so much had changed and so much pain I was experiencing, trying to find a place to live and seeing one of my family members' health decline and see them battle psychologically and emotionally with a cancer diagnosis. And, if you have someone in your life, or maybe you know someone who has experienced cancer, it's a really scary and confronting thing to go through. And so, I shouldered a lot of the burden. I shouldered a lot of the responsibility. And so when I talk about all these monkeys on my back, it felt like I had gorillas on my back. So I'm glad that I stopped. Because what really changed in the stillness was my nervous system finally settled. From being so completely fried and bracing for impact and on edge, I just allowed myself to really fully relax and really fully cry. What's so beautiful about crying is it actually discharges the emotional energy of these experiences from the nervous system to feel freer, because it takes so much more energy for your nervous system to hold on to emotion than it is to let it go. So you can imagine, of course, I wasn't feeling creative. Of course, I didn't have motivation, because all of that energy that could otherwise be channeled into these creative pursuits was completely being funneled towards holding on to emotions of anger and grief and sadness and fear. So my nervous system settled. And clarity actually started to return naturally after being with myself and doing shadow work, which is such a game changer. We'll go deeper into that as the episodes unfold, but I actually came home to myself. It might sound fluffy, it might sound a little bit difficult to grasp, but coming home to yourself is really allowing yourself to feel the very things that you've been avoiding and running from for weeks, months, years, possibly even decades. What happens, and what happened for me, is that when I allowed myself to really sit with my thoughts, the discomfort of the situation that I was in, and to really allow myself to not just express my emotion, not just talk about it with friends, but really expressively process it, crying, shaking, bawling, screaming. I was beating my hands into pillows. I was screaming into pillows. I was just like really letting it all out. So healthy, because unfortunately, especially with an emotion like anger, we're taught from a very early age to suppress that because it might be deemed as crazy or like you're losing the plot by having a tantrum. But kids are so beautiful in their full self-expression that they allow themselves to fully express and to wail and do all these things. And so I allowed myself to do that. And because all of the energy that had otherwise been funneled towards holding onto these emotions finally freed up, my creativity came back. It started flowing without force. I started feeling inspired again to share my mission, to serve clients. New opportunities, new partnerships, new clients just started emerging organically, and I started feeling really grounded, really embodied and present again. So what I want you to take away from all of that is that when I stopped chasing safety through achievement, safety actually found me. It's quite paradoxical, isn't it? But it can be really scary to do that. I get it, as it was for me. What if the very thing that you're avoiding, slowing down for, is the very thing that's actually trying to save you? Something that you might want to sit with. Because slowing down is not regression, you're not falling behind. Stillness isn't stagnation. Rest isn't being lazy. Pausing and being with yourself is not failure. It's actually the furthest thing from it. I would assert that it's success. That's what this whole channel and this whole show is about. It's about you find true success, which is inner peace, I believe, which is inner peace. You could have all of the achievements and all of the likes and all the followers and all the money in the world. If you're still not feeling peaceful internally, I don't deem that as successful. To feel peace, to feel safety inside, you don't need to become anyone else to do that. You just need to come home to yourself, to come home to the things that you've been avoiding, trying to outrunning, in my case, the fear of losing people closest to me, the grief of separation, the anger and resentment towards myself or towards the world. All of these things are really, really important to sit with and to feel. And unfortunately, many high performers often equate stillness and sitting with their thoughts and emotions as danger. God, this is dangerous because I'm not working, because I'm not performing, because I'm not producing. And it's a complete loss of identity because their identity is fused with output. My self-worth and my identity is tied to how much money I can make, to how many clients I can serve, to how many promotions I can get. Many people don't know who they are without productivity. Again, there's no judgment here. It was me. I'm learning as I'm going along. I'm trying to share this with you, to share my story and to share, how I navigate this situation as well, because I'm right on the path with you. I'm by no means exempt from this. Slowing down for a lot of these individuals could be for you, might threaten the story that gives your life structure. It's that narrative that if I stop, then everything just might fall apart. And the analogy that I would use here is it's like you're running on a treadmill that never turns off. And it's not because you enjoy the act or the practice of running. It's because stopping feels completely unsafe. And a really important distinction here is that willpower alone is not going to help you here. Willpower is not going to override a nervous system that is stuck in survival mode. You've got your conscious reasoning faculty, your prefrontal cortex, which is only responsible for about 5% of your results. Then you've got your subconscious mind, which is an intelligent network of systems, including the nervous system. The nervous system doesn't speak logic and willpower, it speaks safety. Its job is to keep you alive, not to keep you fulfilled. And so when you're operating in a state of chronic stress, then your nervous system learns that this is my baseline. I'm always operating on 4 to 6 hours of sleep and caffeine and nicotine and alcohol and cortisol and adrenaline that's coursing through your body. These stress hormones can feel like motivation, when you're used to them. But the system at this point in time, as it was for me, when I was met with this news of cancer diagnosis and relationship tension and, people at work coming and going through the process of hiring and rehiring and all of the things, my nervous system was in sympathetic dominance, which is the body in survival mode. It's the fight or flight state, which you probably heard before. And in this state, your system is asking one question only: am I safe right now? Everything else becomes completely secondary. And this is where many high performers live. This is where most of the population, I would assert, lives. They live in this fight or flight state where they're feeling productive, driven, very, very alert, very focused. But underneath that drive is tension. It's hypervigilance, and there's so much pressure. And it's because the body has learned that my productivity and my output equals safety. Over time, your nervous system has confused stress with purpose. And ancient traditions understood this long before neuroscience did. In Taoism, this is called forcing the river. So when you push against the natural flow of a river, you create and you introduce resistance and exhaustion. In Buddhism, this is called tanha, or craving. It's the constant reaching, constant chasing that keeps the wheel of suffering spinning. And in modern neuroscience, we would just call this chronic sympathetic activation. There's all just different words for the same truth. And what's happening, and this is why I was really struggling to make any sort of headway in my business or in my life and feeling like everything was crumbling down, is because when stress hormones flood the system, when cortisol and adrenaline floods the system, the brain shifts priorities. So blood moves away from the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for your reflection, your creativity, your empathy, your long-term planning, and it fuels the amygdala and the brainstem. That's your threat detection system. Become very fast, very reactive to circumstances, very protective. You're in self-preservation. And that is why stress can feel really, really productive at first, because you're feeling sharp, you're feeling focused, you're feeling alive. But it's the same kind of response that you would be in if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. What happens is it comes at a cost, because your perception actually narrows and your thinking becomes very binary. You lose access to nuance, to creativity, to choice. All of this energy, all of this blood is going towards trying to keep you alive. And that's exactly why people who are under pressure overreact instead of respond. And they default to old habits. Like I did, I defaulted to old habits of vaping. People under pressure also in this state miss obvious solutions, and they make decisions that they later regret. Right? Because they're not thinking clearly. And so in this state, like, your body isn't trying to sabotage you, it's just doing the best that it can to keep you alive based on past data, based on past information. So clarity, if you're lacking clarity right now, if you're lacking clarity on your direction, on your purpose, like I was saying, I was like, man, I thought I was really clear on what I'm supposed to do here. I thought I was really clear on how I'm supposed to show up and help people. But when I was in this state, I was completely dysregulated and I had no idea what I was going to do the next day, let alone over the next 3 to 6 months. So clarity isn't a thinking problem. It is a state problem. You can't think your way into more clarity. You actually settle into it. When your nervous system feels safe, when your nervous system feels regulated, then the brain regains access to the prefrontal cortex. That is where your insight, your creativity, your perspective, your choice lives and emerges from. And that's exactly why, you get shower thoughts. It's why your best ideas might come when you're in the shower or you're going out for a walk or just before sleep. That's not a coincidence. It's because your system finally feels safe enough to open. You finally feel safe enough to tap into new ideas. And the Stoics understood this very deeply. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, spoke about responding to situations instead of reacting. There's a very subtle distinction, response as opposed to reaction. And Epictetus taught that freedom comes from mastering your inner state, not your circumstances, because you can't control your external circumstances. You can only control how you think, how you feel, and how you act, i.e., your inner state. So the Stoics weren't preaching passivity or bypassing. They were actually teaching regulation, the clarity that you're seeking on your purpose, on your mission, on what 2026 is going to look like for you is actually a byproduct of the safety that you're able to cultivate within your body. So if you can relate, if you can resonate to what I'm sharing with you, I want you to know that you're not addicted to achievement. You've been conditioned over time to equate safety with urgency. And what happens, what you lose when you never slow down, what you lose when you never slow down is much the same as what I lost. You get into this state of emotional numbness, which is disguised as productivity. Your creativity starts drying up. You start reacting or overreacting to circumstances, to situations, to people. You might be saying things or making decisions that you later regret. Then the relationships stop becoming deep and meaningful. They start becoming transactional, and you might experience some temporary success, but there's no fulfillment or satisfaction there. And so what I'm inviting you to explore with me today is that stillness isn't actually dangerous. It feels dangerous because it reveals the discomfort that you may have been avoiding. Stillness helps shine a light on the unprocessed emotion that has always been waiting patiently in your body. All the things I was talking to you about earlier around, the anger or the resentment that you might have towards someone who you feel may have done you dirty or betrayed you. The grief or the loss associated with a relationship or a loved one. The fear that you may still be holding on to about why you haven't achieved as much as you think you should have by now, or why you feel like you're slowing down, or why you feel afraid that you're getting older and you won't be able to do the things that you want to do. Slowing down removes the distraction that has actually kept this emotion buried. An emotion is nothing more than stored information. It's really, really intelligent. The body is holding on to information that it wants to communicate to you. It's kind of like a memory bank. And so that's why thinking can't actually resolve what is not a cognitive thing. Thinking doesn't address what is stored in your body. It's kind of like if you have a really dirty room at home, right? Or that room or that chair that just becomes a dumping ground for clothes and miscellaneous items that you haven't touched in years, right? And you may have been avoiding cleaning it for a long time. Once you turn on the light and you see everything around you, it's uncomfortable, but it's also workable because you can't clean it in the dark. The paradox here is that slowing down actually makes you way more effective. Calm, peace, safety is one of the most untapped performance enhancers. And this is nothing new. I mean, some of the top performers that use and tap into these technologies of calm and peace and safety. Novak Djokovic, he uses breathwork, meditation, visualization as his core training tools. And he's always spoken about very publicly and openly about how stillness and inner regulation helps him with mental resilience when he's under pressure. Steve Jobs as well, as you may or may not know, he did his own journey throughout India. He also dove deep into Zen Buddhism, practiced Zen meditation for decades, and he credited stillness for his own clarity, his intuition, and creativity that gave him access to all of these revolutionary ideas that didn't just change one industry, but multiple industries. Katy Perry, who actually uses transcendental meditation, and much like Jerry Seinfeld as well, these are some of the top performers and thought leaders and real visionaries who I've looked up to because of the work that they've done to change the game in their industry. And I've really analyzed, so what's really behind their success? It's actually not working harder. It's actually coming home to self. Kobe Bryant also comes to mind. Rest his soul. He spoke openly about mindfulness and stillness as core tools to slow down and also slow the basketball game down mentally so that he was able to really improve his reaction time. So what I'm pointing to here is that there's a very big difference between calm attention and frantic effort. At the end of the day, a regulated system makes a far better decision. So being calm, Finding peace, finding stillness and safety, it's not passive. It's a highly responsive, highly intelligent step to take. It's not quitting. It's actually upgrading your operating system. This is where your real power lives. This is the real difference between motion and direction. If you're working on the wrong thing and you're giving it all that you possibly can for weeks, months, years, but it's the wrong thing, then how do you think you'd feel about that, coming to that realization or revelation down the track, as opposed to taking the time to understand what is the direction that I'm heading in, what is the direction that's going to serve me, that's going to support me, that's going to really move the needle forward on my mission, and then being able to really commit your time and resources and energy to that as a result of the clarity that has emerged from this safety that you've cultivated. And then you're taking action as a form of self-expression, as a form of authentic expression, as opposed to avoidance. It's very subtle. And you can tune into yourself now and ask yourself, am I working on this because I'm trying to avoid something? Or am I working on this because this is something that really lights me up, that feels really expansive, that is really an expression of who I am and my values and my passions? And that is the moment that action becomes very clean, very grounded, very intentional, and you're able to sustain it over an extended period of time. So clarity, the clarity that you're seeking, always follows regulation and safety, not the other way around. You might want to ask yourself this, or maybe even journal on it. What do I do to feel safe? And what would I do if I already felt safe? This is the emergence, I believe, of personal development 2.0, to take inspiration from David Bayer, where we're not taking action anymore from pressure. We're taking action from self-trust and safety. This is true strength. Strength is the capacity to pause. Strength is staying present with the discomfort of the emotions and the thoughts that you've been running from. Strength is choosing alignment with a direction and a path that actually lights you up, as opposed to seeking the approval and validation of those around you. So if you trusted that you didn't need to earn your worth today, how would you move differently? So with that, I'll bring this in for a landing. Slowing down is not giving up. I learned the hard way, and that's why, I learned these things. I want to share them as they come through. Slowing down is really choosing to live from the inside out, to really address the parts of yourself that you perhaps have been avoiding or unwilling to acknowledge, so that you can unlock the wisdom of the emotion that's living within you, so that you can process, so that you can transmute this energy into something creative, to really free up the baggage from your nervous system, to reclaim your power, to reclaim this inner fire. Because the world doesn't need you more burnt out. The world doesn't need more burnt out, stressed out, anxious, high performers and visionaries. It needs you to be grounded. It needs you to be awake. It needs you to be safe, peaceful, and powerful. So thank you so much. That was powerful for me. I hope it was as powerful for you. I love you so much. Thank you for being here in this conversation with me, and I'll see you in the next episode.